Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And we have the webinar on quantity surveying and cost estimation using Excel and advanced tools, the most awaited webinar we are waiting for. And with the greatest experienced giant in the QS, we have today as our speaker. So without any delay, I would like to introduce Sir first. So then Sir can continue next further session. Sir is Sir is currently working as an executive cost manager in Gleeds. I would like to introduce Sir name Anbu N. Sir completed his civil engineering and Sir currently pursuing his doctorate from Rushford University. Sir started his career in Raj Paris Civil Construction Company. From there, Sir came to L&T. After that, Sir got into Amin Constructions. After Sir moved to Gleeds, then again JLL. Again, Sir came to Gleeds and now working as an executive cost manager. Sir has done various levels of experiences like site engineer, QS planning engineer, project engineer, assistant cost manager, lead cost manager, and now executive cost manager. Sir also have great experiences in skills like AutoCAD, RebarCAD, StatPro, and Costex. And Sir is the member of ACCE India, lifetime member. So without any further delay, I would like to ask Sir to continue the further session. Thank you, Sir, for joining us firstly.
Thank you so much. Please let me know if my screen is up.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, I would like to start with a small, even though the webinar is going to speak about quantity surveying using Excel and advanced tools, I would like to put it in such a way like what is quantity surveying in modern world, because that's what most of us are interested to speak about. And the agenda which I had in my mind is to have this in two parts if required. So the perception what CE team has given to me is like mostly it has to be very basic at the beginnings to help budding engineers who are coming into the field to understand what is quantity surveying, how to navigate into such domain. So this entire upcoming 1 hour, I'm going to speak about the very basics of quantity surveying. I can also see some of the senior, executives, senior managers from various parts of the world joining into the call. So I may be giving some information which few of us could probably know. Please bear with me. So as I've told, the intent of the next 1 hour is going to be, help you understand what is quantity surveying, what are the different stakeholders we handle with, what are the deliverables we use to give in a project, what is the importance of certain deliverables like quantity estimations, BOQs, rate analysis, what is the significance of those deliverables, and also like few questions, like few broader level questions like, do I have a career in this? What is the scope of quantity surveying? How much would I be able to earn in this? So these kind of ideas is what I have kept as a brief to cover in this next 1.5 hours. And I'm very cautious. I'm not going to bore you with some too much detailed or theoretical or technical aspects, because I always enjoy having such conversation, interactive conversations, and providing content which helps people to understand quickly. So that's the context, that's the ground rule for this next 1.5 hours of this session with you. And before start, thanks Satish for this wonderful introduction. By the way, I'm not a giant. There are a lot of giants in this industry still. I've fortunately got opportunities to work with giants with whom I have got ability to learn, what is quantity surveying, what are the nuances involved in this field. So that's what I'm going to speak about. Uh, Satish has already given a small brief about me. Yes, this is Anbu Nathan. You can shortly call me as Anbu. So almost like 10 years, I celebrate this 1 decade this year into this industry. I have started as a site engineer in my career, and numbers has always been a fascinating part of me. I always enjoy to work with numbers. So that I realized once I was working in a site in Chennai, where the project cost was calculated in a different way, and the project went on with a lot of changes. So because of which I had to work on putting up some additional bills to compensate the loss happened in the project. So when you say additional bills, eventually you have to satisfy the management, you have to satisfy the client as well. So it is like either ways you have to jump between them, prepare proper documentation. So that's where my QS journey started without even realizing what I'm doing at that point of time, because it was a very new, I was a fresher then, it was a very new set of rules and ball to play with. So that's how it all started. And then, I've got opportunity to work as a project engineer, planning engineer, along with L&T for various projects, almost like 2 to 3 locations in India. So that is how this QS journey started. And then, I've shifted to Maldives for working there. So that's when I realized the importance of QS, because Maldives is a place where, you don't have materials readily available like India. For example, now today you want maybe 100 metric tons of steel. It's easy to place an order and get it within maybe 3 days or 7 days. You can get it in your site. But in Maldives, like it takes months, because everything has to be shipped through ship. You have to import everything. You cannot manufacture everything there. So there is a place where I have learned the importance of materials, quantity takeoffs, and BOM, BOQs, etc. and all. So that's actually a place which gave me a lot of wisdom about quantity surveying. And then started to work with Gleeds. Of course, Gleeds helped me to shape me up as a professional into the industry, because there are always like 2 3 stakeholders which we need to interact with. So I'll cover those aspects into this presentation. So that's where I learned about details of this. And then I was also a key member of JLL cost management later to that. So I've worked for almost 3 years there. I have set up the I've got opportunity to set up the procedures, formats of how the cost management process has to be done in JLL team. So that's how my career was. And then I have got opportunity to work on sustainability side as well, because I was always wondering, like, what is the future of quantity surveying? Is are we going to just end up with measurements, rates, contracts, etc., or is there anything beyond what we could do than what we are doing? So that's when I found this avenue called embodied carbon estimation. So I was part of Gleeds to blend cost management, quantity surveying along with sustainability. So the idea was basically to innovate something new, to create a whole new product where a quantity surveyor like us, the expertise of our domain can be brought in towards the intelligence of sustainability for embodied carbon estimations. So that is what I am currently working. Along with that, I'm also taking care of cost management and quantity surveying services for Hyderabad region. So, once a QS, always a QS. So I didn't want to leave that legacy of quantity surveying in me to, bleed away. So I'm also taking care of cost management operations at Hyderabad for Hyderabad region. So we will keep interacting about these things going forward. Without any further delay, I'll just skip into the seminars, right? So why we are here today, to know about QS and cost management basically, of course, and what is this profession is all about, and how to become a QS. These are the three ideas I had in my mind to focus today. So is there a job, is there a good job to compared with a site as a site engineer? Yes, of course, and I'll explain it why. What skills are required? There are a lot of skills required here. I have just tried to prioritize top 8 set of skills here in this, and how much a QS can earn. That's the elephant in the room. That is the biggest question, like everybody wants to understand, and a lot more other steps about procedures of cost management and how to get into this field. And I would like to just once again set the pitch clearly. So this presentation was made in such a way to help freshers and entry level, junior level, mid level managers to understand about quantity surveying. I'm not going to go anything into detail. It's all going to be a basic presentation of putting up things in a newer perspective, helping you to understand much better. At any point, any doubt is there, please put a message in the chat box. I'm happy to clarify those doubts as and when required. So yeah, what is quantity surveyors? Early in the 17th, 18th century, it was termed as measurers. So it was always started with measuring the site, length, breadth of a building for various reasons. So that's how this this whole industry of quantity surveying has actually started. So as I've said, during early 17th and 18th century, this domain was believed to be originally conceptualized with this term quantity surveying, and existed in United Kingdom, England, during those centuries. So basically the requirement at those point of time is to calculate material, is to calculate labor. So only for these two tasks, this profession was majorly used during 17th and 18th century. It was also a belief like these quantity surveyors or people who helped, the monarch at that point of time, the kings and queens of England at that point of time, to evaluate the wealth of the assets, infrastructures, and what is the cost has to be invested. So all this kind of things was done by this group of people. It was a belief existing. So later, a lot of transitions happened. People started to narrow down or focus more towards material quantity, towards costs and documentations which is involved in a project. So as and when the post 17th century, a lot of developments happened. So during across those developments, the focus slightly started to shift beyond labor and material to material quantification, cost and cost related documentation, and to also ensure about fair payment. When I say about fair payment, there was always misunderstanding between understanding of a contractual condition, understanding of the payment terms between a client and a contractor. The I would probably say that the one thing which a QS should always have in mind is to ensure a fair payment is made, both by the client to the contractor, and to ensure the contractor is claiming a fair payment from the client. So these are the key areas which the domain started to focus during later point of time. And of course, as I've told, late to 18th centuries, World War One and Two had happened, which put a demand to a lot of reconstruction works, where people has to come and do reconstruction, because it's always a little difficult job than doing a new construction, because there are certain elements of the building existing. You may need to touch up and start from that, so may not need a whole quantity of material to procure and start, but you may need to have a different set of material quantity, or the item also would vary according to that. So this put a lot of this World War existence after post World War reconstruction, put a lot of pressure on the QS industry to evolve, because a lot of reconstruction happened, new construction came up, with the result of industrialization as well. As industrialization started to boom, a lot of opportunities for constructing different type of structures. The result of industrialization is also with newer materials into the place. So that's when people started to think beyond wood based structure in those olden types, and then concrete came with the help of industrialization. Cement came, a lot of different varieties of cement started to come, multiple varieties of metal products started to come, a lot of finishes materials, interior materials. All these things are result of industrialization, so which added the potential to do a building, to conceptualize a building in a different way. So all this has contributed to expand construction globally. And as a result of that, quantity surveying today is not just with measurement, it's not just with fair payment, it is also with cost control, it is also with resource allocation, it is also a part of an integral part of a project management. It also has extended its roots to cost risk analysis, which happens at different stage of a project. These days even investors wanted to do a cost risk analysis. So how much would they invest for a project, so that they calculate this along with their return of interest, return of investment, etc. And it went on to tender and contract management, cost documentation, projects final accounting, closures, and a lot more. Because across this, when you do a lot of projects, when as I've told, uh, the World War stage and industrialization stage put a lot of pressure for reconstruction and construction. That means when a lot of constructions are there, a lot of people will come in. When a lot of people, always a lot of problem they'll carry along with it. Be it laborers, be it contractors, be it client, be it designers. They all come with a different experience. They all come with a different exposure. They may not certainly understand what this project requires. So because of which a lot of problems started to happen, and everything at the point comes to payments. Everything at the point comes to the scope. Everything at the point comes to what is to be delivered to the site, what is to be constructed to the site, which in turn is connected to the payment, which a client pays to the contractor pays to the subcontractor pays to the material vendor. It keeps on going. So this is where the potential was of quantity surveying explode hugely, and started to spread its branches across many of these avenues today. And currently, like, it doesn't end with that. During early 18th centuries or mid 18th centuries, RICS was set up, Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors, who tried to formalize all these quantity surveying methodologies, processes, etc. Because till then, like, an item can be measured, a concrete can be measured in cubic meters also. It can be measured in running meters also, depending on the size of it. It can also be measured in cubic feet. So there was always this ambiguity, like what is the unit, what is the rate I have to price for the unit, how do someone measure it. So that's when RACS stepped in mid 18th century. They have done a lot of contribution for this industry, setting up the rules for measurement, setting up certain precautions of to ensure the project is completed on time, at cost, and with right quality. So those also helped this entire industry. And then of course CAD I cannot miss. Computer aided design, it actually drew a very big mark into the quantity surveying industry in terms of quantification. It actually accelerated the way people used to do quantification. Today, like, there is no system, there is no organization which functions without form of computer aided design in place. And then BIM, sustainability, and ESG, all these are also still contributing. Quantity surveying has been would have started with book based measurements, drawing based physical measurements, and then slightly it moved out to, once CAD is in place, it moved on to CAD and Excel based measurements. Once BIM has placed, now we can able to extract the quantities with a single click. So all this has happened with the help of technologies. And also I can see a lot of quantity surveying professionals, I mean, I'm an example for that too, start working on sustainability and environmental social governance, ESG perspectives. And this domain is also extended with a lot of strategic consulting and advisory roles. It is not something which you have to work only in a site. You can also work even before the site is in place, even before the client has finalized the project, in what shape it is about to come. You can still partner with the client for strategic consulting and advisory reasons. And of course, quantity surveyors over a period of time has transformed themselves into professionals who handle dispute resolution and into the arbitration side as well, because all this is again related to the payments, related to the costs. So that's when the professionals has got avenues open there, and they have started to go there and explore opportunities, newer opportunities, which help them to spread their wings across multiple discipline, including arbitration and dispute resolution. And it doesn't end here. I might have not covered the entire areas where where a quantity surveyor role has penetrated into in a project's life cycle, but there are a lot more to come up. And of course today it has like become a role like where you need to go and help out someone today. So that's where the role is currently today. And there are usual myths about quantity surveying. This is like something which I purposefully wanted to speak. Many believe like it's a dying profession, and the reason is, I would honestly say, like, somebody believes like it's a dying profession, they have conceptualized themselves as someone, as an estimator, maybe as a quantity estimator. Maybe they haven't understood the entire portfolio of what quantity surveying is. Maybe because of that they believe that it's a dying profession. And many believe it's a profession of just measurement. No, it's not. As I've told you, previous slide I've told you about almost like 8 to 10 areas where a QS can work. It's not just with measurement. Of course it starts with measurement, but it's not necessary that the profession has to continue only in measurements. And people also believe there's no career growth in it. There are good number of examples to justify that statement, there is no career growth. Same side, there are also good number of examples to justify this, to justify that there is huge potential for career growth in quantity surveying. And it's again a question of how willing are you to learn new skills, adapt to the existing market conditions, adapt to the global trends, adapt to the newer technologies, adapt to what a project requires, what a client requires, what fellow stakeholders requires. If you have the capacity to understand that, then career growth is something which is obviously going to be there. And also there's a belief like it's going to be a site-based job. No, in quantity surveying there are two main areas. It's one is pre-contract, one is post-contract. And when it comes to post-contract, it's mostly a site-based job. When it comes to pre-contract, it's not necessarily a site-based job. And I have said this is related to a project once an execution is started. And if you are into, for example, dispute resolution side, if you are into maybe procurement side, if you are into maybe some other tendering and contract sides, obviously there is no need to be at site. And I'm saying this not to degrade a site job, but there is a myth like a QS has to be at site. It's not necessary, but a QS will also be at site, will also be at office. It depends on the project growth. And there is no future, there is no scope for QS, because AI is going to, artificial intelligence is going to eat QS domain. That's the belief, that's a myth which is existing. But I'm going to challenge them. No, it's not going to happen, at least for for countries like us, because we still have a lot of contractors who doesn't know how to take measurements. We still have a lot of vendors, a lot of consultants, a lot of designers, a lot of clients themselves who are unaware of doing a systemized construction in place, doing a documented construction in place, doing a fair payment for all the stakeholders. All these are still a problem in India. So at least for India, no, AI is not going to eat the traditional QS at least for the next 10 to 15 years, I would say, because it takes a lot of shift from the contractors, from the developers in this market, and that is not nearby. It is going to take a lot of time for them to transfer. So till then, the traditional quantity surveying is going to be there. And as I've told you, there are also fields currently which started to evolve. People started to use BIM technologies. People started to use a lot of other digital twin, lidar technologies, etc., to for enhanced measurements and all. So even whatever comes in, people need to be there to do and execute those softwares, execute those artificial intelligence tool. For that, people like us are at least required. So there are 2 points I would like to put here. The profession is not going to be eaten by AI because of the market nature, the condition of our country. And second, there are few set of clients, a few set of developers and contractors who have already started to use a lot of AI tools, and eventually in return they need people to run those tools. It's not like in construction it is never possible, at least for the next 100 years, for a robot to come and do everything. 100% not possible. So in such case, people need to be there to govern that AI tools, because at the end the construction has to be executed by laborers, and that's where they need people like us to come and bridge that gap of knowledge between a client and the front end person who is doing a execution work at the end. So I hope these are some of the myths which I would like to address. Let this remain as a myth. These are not anymore myths. Have 100% confidence and trust about this, uh, you know, entire domain of quantity surveying. So what does a QS touches typically in a project? Of course, first it starts with quantification. When I say quantification, again, it's not just material. It's also about, preparing cost estimates and things like that. And, he also touches, a QS will also has a lot of potential to touch and create a meaningful impact for a project in tender and documentation, tender and contracts, because this is where a stage where you put the ground rules very clearly. You put rules like what is the payment to be made, what is the payment terms to be agreed, is there a performance bank guarantee, is there a retention available, how do you release the retention, what is the defects liability period. Of course, there'll be multiple other stakeholders, but a QS take is also a significant QS say is also a significant say during this tendering and contracts. As experienced professionals, when you evolve with a lot of projects, you will understand the pros and cons of keeping a 5% or a 10% retention, and which helps to that particular project. All this comes into play. And of course into procurement, because we are the people who are doing quantification. So we know what materials are going to be there in a project, and what is the volume of material you are going to procure. And it is also related to the budget which a quantity surveyor eventually provides. So you cannot you cannot assume a material to buy maybe with 100 rupees per unit price, and what if the procurement team buys it at 120 rupees? It's obviously not going to be a profit for you or for the for your organization. So of course, a lot of procurement need to involve with a lot of vendors, need to understand with a lot of materials which is coming into that. So this is eventually a place where a QS touches. And of course, last, it also extends beyond budgeting, because the entire process of this actually starts with budgeting. You would have probably fixed what is the cost that a client or a stakeholder can spend on this project, and how do we distribute the cost. So in a nutshell, I would like to say, in quantity surveying, what is this budgeting? We fix an amount, we fix that amount into multiple trade packages, and we make sure that spend is not going to go beyond that allocated amount for each and every trade packages. And if it goes beyond that, if it goes more than that, or for what reason, is it acceptable or not acceptable? So this is entirely the nutshell of budgeting. And of course, not just these items, it also goes once the execution started to happen, it also extends for cost tracking and control, because you cannot keep there must be a limit to an extent of what you can build in a site. So which is all because it has a lot of cost related to it. What if the labor extends the task beyond the time? There is going to be a cost loss. What if the material required for the site was procured in a large quantity? There is going to be a cash flow issue. So all this comes under your cost tracking and cost control. So obviously a vital part which a QS will touch. And post contract administration. When I say this, it's also about resource allocation, it's also about construction documentation, it's also about giving cost reports, cash flow statements, predictive analysis of cost to complete analysis, etc., and a lot more. And these days there is a profession which is also coming up about carbon estimations. professionals like us who can understand the materials involved in a project, who can understand the project impact of a project in terms of cost, in terms of line items, in terms of activities, can easily get into an understanding of the carbon footprint of each and every activities and materials involved in a project. So carbon estimation is indeed something which is growing into the field. Of course, it doesn't end with that. There is a lot more which a QS will explore according to the scope on which a QS is assigned for a project. So coming to the skills and knowledge, what a QS would ideally require, first and foremost thing, there has to be a fair amount of site knowledge, because without that, I would always say, be it whatever the profession you are in under construction domain, whatever the domain you are in under the construction field, site knowledge is something which is very important. I would always encourage freshers to at least spend, couple of years or at least 1 year to at site to understand the core construction, because I always say something when I meet fresh minds. Basically, it is like we are construction engineers or civil engineers are people who are bridging two level of talents. One is, for example, the client or the stakeholders who are highly qualified, highly educated, and the other side we have laborers who are executing, who are perhaps doesn't have any qualification, perhaps illiterate. So bridging them is not an easy task, and that is where we come in as construction professionals or civil engineers to educate a labor, educate a site supervisor or a foreman, to help him understand what a drawing is, help him execute that material in a right way, how to execute a block work, how to do a mix a cement mortar, how to mix a concrete, etc. And all this has a cost, and we are those people who take this time, cost, and quality of this and report to the higher management. They are highly qualified, so it's not going to be an easy task. So unless and until you have a fair amount of site knowledge, wherever the domain, whichever the domain you pick under construction's umbrella, it is going to be very tough. And first and foremost skill which I would like to emphasize is your knowledge about site. And second most important thing is conceptualization skill. Why would I require a conceptualization skill? uh, give some guesses. Why would a civil engineer require a conceptualization skill? So I have also spoken about site. uh, do you believe like you can conceptualize the entire you can know and learn, or perhaps see the entire construction of a building, or entire construction of all the buildings happening across the globe? Impossible, right? There today, for example, today we are behind 3D printing technologies. Today we are using those technologies for constructing a building. Is it, how many of us have really got an opportunity to go and see how a 3D printing is happening? But this is a place where we can implement our conceptualization technology, conceptualization skill. Because if you have proper site knowledge, if you are able to crack that nut of how a material or how an activity works, and if you put it across along with your conceptualization skill, obviously that is where you will know how a new technology, how a new activity, how something, suppose I might have seen a flooring activity, I may not have seen a concreting activity. And if I see a YouTube, I should be in a position to conceptualize that and understand how does it fits to my project, how does it suits exactly to my specific site, depending on the scenario of my site. So this is where a lot of conceptualization skill is required, particularly for current generation. If you decide to spend not more than 1 year at site, then this conceptualization skill is going to be very important, because there are a lot of videos available, blogs available to understand about different activities. But you need this skill to understand how it is practically possible to execute at my site, what are the risks and positives and pros and cons of that doing at my site. This is impossible without conceptualization skills. So this is a blend of site and conceptualization skill. If anybody has, that is going to be an important skill for any civil engineer. And of course, material knowledge. This I would say is something very challenging, because this keeps evolving over time. With the help of technologies, there will be a lot of materials which keeps coming. There will be a lot of new blend of material which keeps coming, and it is very important to be a highly competitive engineer to have a good amount of material knowledge in place. And these are the top skills which I would recommend. I would also like to speak about a little of bit of other knowledge areas where someone can focus. Of course, measurement and quantification knowledge, which is very very important, because like the drawings when you see, uh, you have to have a fair, you have to clearly understand how or what information the drawing is communicating to you, because we may be doing a quantification even before the project is awarded to a contractor. In such cases, we are the people who are responsible for preparing, bill of materials, bill of quantities, etc. And all this is going to be something which is going to start with our understanding of a drawing, and our understanding of that drawing, how it is converted to a measurement and a quantified item. So for example, if there is a bulkhead given for a false ceiling, and if I do not have that ability to read the drawing and measure it properly, it needs to be executed at site. And if I leave that item, or if I have not quantified the item, it is going to be a huge amount for the entire project. It might be a small item, but on an overall perspective, it's going to be a huge item, and it doesn't look good on you when you leave an item, because that is what the job of that is what the job which was given to you. When I say about measurement and quantification, I mean about the proficiency in interpreting construction drawings, and the specifications on how it is involved to calculate accuracy, to maintain accuracy of quantities of materials and for labor calculation, because all this is again nothing but is going to contribute to your cost. And having a thorough knowledge on mode of measurements, or measurement standards like NRM, new rule of measurement. There are multiple NRM categories available. People who are working in Dubai, UAE, or multiple parts of the world are very familiar with NRM 1, 2, and 3, because those countries typically follow NRM. And for Indian professionals, for people who are doing in India, please be aware about IS codes, IS 1200 in specific, which speaks about most of all measurements except reinforcement. So it's mandatory for us to understand what the code specifies, how to measure an item, because without that, there is no value which we could actually bring to construction. So that is first thing which I would like to speak about. And second is cost estimation and budgeting. Of course, like the point of entire measurement and quantification is to rule out, is to clearly project a budget for the project, right? So when I speak about cost estimation and budgeting, I am specifically speaking about ability to prepare a cost plan in detail. For example, there are multiple stages in a project. It may be a preliminary estimate, it may be a detailed design stage estimate. So there is a level of expertise which a QS need to identify of how to prepare an estimate in detail at a preliminary stage. There may be requirements from clients where they may have, it's a 7 lakh square feet commercial project in Hyderabad. What is the cost of it? You don't have any idea beyond that, but still you should have a capability or skills to understand what elements would go through into that, and what would be an ideal cost for construction, approximately in a range as a ballpark number. And also this design would evolve later part of time. It may go for a conceptual stage design, schematic stage design, detailed stage design. And across all these stages, what is going to change is the level of detail. Maybe you may not have proper detail at the preliminary stage, but you will have almost 98% of the detail at your design development stage. So you still need to understand all this detail and update these budgets accordingly, which is very important, very important for a QS professional. And also our expertise in analyzing rates, across the life cycle of a project. And any item, because executing a concrete in Hyderabad is not same as executing the same in Chennai or Mumbai or Bangalore. The rates are going to vary because uh, you know the material price is going to differ. There are a lot of other factors. And executing a concrete in Hyderabad is not going to be same as executing in Kerala or West Bengal, because there are a lot of labor cost fluctuation between these two states compared to Hyderabad. And our expertise to analyze those is going to be very critical. And that is what is going to help clients, and that is why clients are asking us, to help them understand about, because they might be placed at one place, they may not be aware of market rates. They might want to extend a building in Kerala, they don't know what is the issue there, they don't know what is the labor cost there. So in such cases, professionals like us has to help them understand, by providing a right cost, by understanding the by leveraging our expertise and understanding the ground conditions. And the next is about contract management, of course, very important, because only this is going to ensure, how do we bind a contractor for his responsibility? How do we bind a client? How do we transfer or reduce the risk of a project which lies with the client? All this is entirely depending on the contract management. And our expertise still required here, understanding about various form of contracts like FIDIC, and there are multiple other contracts. I specifically do not want to go in detail, because we need to have a separate session about it to speak, which helps us to understand why it is very important. And it doesn't end with prescribing or diagnosing a project with the right contract to take in place. It also takes place with preparing a right techno-commercial negotiation statement, preparing a bid analysis report where we can find, suppose if I'm floating a tender, 5 vendors are participating, all 5 would give a different rates, and how would I go and align with them? How would I pick one from them to suit to the project's cost which I have arrived, and how to ensure like they are not coming up with any variations, they have understood what I'm quoting for the project in a fair way, in a neat way. So all these are related to contract management, and our skill sets in this is going to value hugely for a project successful completion. And the next is our use of knowledge in construction technology. I've told you the example of 3D printing. What if the client wants to suddenly do a small unit in their project with 3D printing technology? How would you calculate the cost of it? So it is very important for a QS to be aware of the trend which is happening inside the construction industry, not just within this locality but also across globally, because what is getting executed globally is going to come to us down the line, maybe around 5 years or 10 years. But there are few specific clients who wanted to give a trial out of it. So these are all the areas where someone as a QS has to focus to keep themselves at an upper edge in terms of competing a better salary, in terms of getting a better position in their role. So yes, knowledge on construction technologies is something which is very important to compete with the growing trends, to compete with the newbies who is coming into the industry, to compete with your peers, to ask for a good salary, to demand a good job in a good company. And it doesn't end with that. A lot of regulatory and legal knowledge is required for us, because the construction law varies from place to place. There are a lot of building codes in place. I cannot use the same building code practices and law practices which I have used in India to use it in Maldives or to use it in Dubai, and vice versa. So I need to have the specific local authorities. I need to have a knowledge or skill sets about, develop skill sets about specific local regulations and local authorities. The knowledge on that is going to help us a lot in terms of governing the project, because projects are always location specific. When project is location specific, contractors are also location specific. So any location specific local guidelines only can bind them to successfully complete the project. So our knowledge on that is going to be incredibly valuable for a project. And of course, communication and negotiation skills. This is a profession where a lot of interpersonal skills are required to interact effectively, because we are interacting, as I've told you, we are interacting. We may have need to interact with contractors, laborers in some time, contractors, multiple consultants like project management, design consultant, lead consultant, and also with the upper supreme power of a client. So we should have the flexibility to communicate effectively, diplomatically, sometimes according to the different stakeholders. And we also be part of procurement team sometimes, where we need to understand how we are going to negotiate something to achieve to procure a material at an efficient, effective cost for a project. And we are also at a place where conflicts will come to us. The vendor will come up with a conflict. He may misinterpret something, misunderstand something. The client may misunderstand something. So there is a potential there could be a conflict between both the parties, and we'll be sitting there to resolve that conflict. We should have that lot of interpersonal skills to handle both the parties efficiently, because end of the day our goal is to successfully complete the project and deliver within the committed timeline, cost and quality. So eventually it is going to be a huge role, play a huge role in a QS life. And what is the other digital technologies and our proficiency about it? For example, CostX is something which I can bring in. So earlier the measurement used to happen a lot with Excel and AutoCAD based tools, and then there are softwares like CostX, PlanSwift, Candy, CADmate, etc. So how do we play around with these technologies which are already started to come up into the market? And I may not have used Candy in a project. How quick am I to adapt those to a new project where the client requires me to understand and do something in a Candy or a PlanSwift? So how quickly we are able to interpret those, how quickly we are able to interpret the BIM related technologies, how do we use those technologies for efficient quantification, takeoffs and cost management principles, is going to be a huge thing. So in this I would like to say, like, you don't want to be too much stressful about what technologies are going to come, because you cannot control them. But all you should have is that your adaptability and to and your ability to learn quickly. That is something which I would like to emphasize in this deck. And your knowledge about sustainability and your knowledge about sustainable construction practices. So there is a growing demand for people who started to work about life cycle cost, life cycle carbon estimations, or embodied carbon estimation. There are a lot of green certifications happening. So we should also have an understanding, because eventually it's again related to the cost part of a project. It's again related to the budget of a project. So how much is the cost difference of doing a sustainable building than a non-sustainable building? Is it going to be cheaper or costlier? if it's going to be cheaper or costlier, under what items it is going to be cheaper and costlier. So all this knowledge is going to be help us in terms of working along with multiple projects with multiple stakeholders. And apart from that, as I've told you, we have to work with a lot of a lot of people. When people are more, the problems are going to be more. And of course, problem solving skills, teamwork, your leadership skills in terms of understanding the client, in terms of managing your own team, and your capability to manage the stakeholders effectively. And the most important, but last but not least, is your ability to sit and think collaboratively. Suppose there are places where you may need to go and work along with a design consult, not just with one or two design consultants. Maybe there will be a group of design consultants for various aspects of the project. You may need to go along, sit along with them, do a workshop. So a collaborative thinking is something which is very important if you have an idea to work in as a QS. Now it comes to, we have spoken about the skill sets, we have spoken about how this industry has evolved into this timeline. I would also like to speak about what a QS will typically deliver in a project. So the first and foremost thing is estimates. And when I speak about estimates, it's not it's like three types of estimates basically are available. First thing is material estimates. So what is the quantity of material of a material? When I say each and every material, say if you're doing a 1 lakh square feet project, at least like you'll use 100 types of materials into it, right? So uh, how quali or how accurate is it estimate in terms of listing down all those 100 items, 100 materials into it? Because without those materials, execution is not possible. And when execution has to happen in time, material has to be available in time. To bring a material on time, you need to procure it on time, because material doesn't come in a day. You cannot just do an Amazon order and do it, bring it to you. If you do it that quick, it's going to be costly. So you need to procure it with little time in place, convince the vendor, negotiate the price with them, and place the order on right time. So these estimates are going to be very critical in terms of completing the project. And the second is about cost estimates. So what is the budget? What is the site scenario? What is the project specific issues? What is the ground condition of the project? What technology are we going to use? Are we going to use an aluminum shuttering? Are we going to use a traditional shuttering? Are we going to use a Maivan shuttering? So based on that, the cost is going to vary a lot. So our accuracy in terms of cost estimates. And last but not least, if you're working for a contractor firm, the labor estimates are going to be something which is very challenging to do, because contractors typically, when they bid for a project, they would have bidded it with certain amount of labors in place. And it's not just ending with that. You need to provide accommodation for them, food for them, certain other facilities, hygiene facilities for them, and transport facilities for them. And you need to know when to bring them. That is going to be very critical, because there is no point of bringing all the 100 required labors at the time of excavation itself, correct? Because your concrete will be happening 1 month later. So you need to plan when you're going to mobilize those labors, according to the project's schedule, according to the project's timeline. So these are going to be very challenging, and these are going to be the elements which is going to hugely govern your cost as well, because uh, you have to estimate the productivity of the labor as well. What if the labor who is supposed to pour 10 m cube of concrete, set of labors who are supposed to pour 10 m cube of concrete today, what if they have not poured it? The material is available, it's going to be wasted, and your timeline is going to shift. The money which a contractor wants to get on time is not, they're not going to get it. So it is it is connected to a lot of dots within the construction. So these are the estimates, the typical three types of estimates. Of course, there'll be multiple terminologies for this. You may need to do this at different point of time, or sometimes you need to do it continuously across the project's lifetime. But whenever, whatever the estimates it is, you can bucket it into these three categories. Either it's going to be a material estimate, or cost estimate, or a labor estimate. And your reports are going to speak either of these three or all of these three. So that's it about the delivery. And when do we need to do these estimates? Eventually, as I've told you, it varies. You may need to do it across construction stages. Suppose you may need to reconcile or revalidate your estimates once the excavation is done, maybe after certain concrete is done, maybe after the flooring is done. So you need to do it across the construction stages. You need to do it across the design stages as well, because as I've told you, at a preliminary stage, you may not have a lot of information available with you, but at a detailed design stage or a schematic level stage, you may have a lot of better data available with you. So we need to refine your estimates according to the detail level of detail available with you. And of course, you need to have a lot of expertise for making benchmark estimates as well. So these are benchmark estimates or preliminary estimates basically, where you have very minimal data. We need to understand what the market has behaved, how the trend of that market in terms of various estimates have behaved, and based on that we need to sit on a ballpark number. So these are the areas or different stages where do we need to give those three estimates which we have seen in the previous slides. And you know, what else do we work with in terms of what else do we deliver in a project? One thing which I can quickly remind is of BBS, bar bending schedules. So bar bending schedules are very critical for a base build project because this is basically going to govern about the wastage of rebar. From a sustainability point of view also, it's not like you can buy something, put 10% wastage, execute it. No, there is a cost for it. So suppose for example your project is going to have 100 metric tons of steel, and imagine 10% of it goes as wastage. So you will have only 90 per metric ton of steel available with you. Your project's demand is 100. You have only 90. 10 has gone into wastage. And why? It's because of poor cutting plan provided there. So you may need to procure another 10%, another 10 tons of steel. So that might, what if the material get delayed? What if the cost fluctuated at that point of time when you procure? So when you procure it, you have to be very sure about the wastage of the material. You have to be very sure of how much you need to procure. So I may conclude 5% of the wastage, for example. I'm saying 5% of the wastage. So instead of procuring 100, I may go with 105, and I still can reduce the wastage further down so that I have surplus quantity which I can transfer to another site. So these are examples where a QS can play around using a bar bending schedule. And also the one of the other key deliverable delivery what a QS would do is billing. So billing is something which is very critical for both the client as well as for the contractors or vendors. And how do you bill it is going to ensure the transparency, is going to ensure to bring confidence of all stakeholders onto the project. Anybody needs money eventually, and if the billing is delayed, the date of the date they which receive their money is going to get delayed. So it is going to be a huge part. I'll slightly explain that on further questions if it is there. And of course, one of the key deliverable or a delivery what a QS would make is value engineering. So this might be a new term for many of us, but I'll just explain this a little in detail. Value engineering is nothing but anything, any suggestions, any alternatives, any brainstorming or a result of a brainstorming, which ensures the functionality of the product in the same way but reduces the cost of it. So this is the nutshell. In nutshell, this is what value engineering is. Suppose for example I have a material X which is a cladding material or a paint material, for example, which is a wall finish material. So instead of using a material X, I can use another material Y from a different manufacturer or from a different material, different locality, which looks like the same, but it which performs like the same, which but in turn it reduces the cost. So instead of using X paint, I may need to spend around 40 rupees per square feet. But if I bring this Y material, the look, appeal, performance, quality is going to be the same, but I may get it for 28 rupees per square feet. So there is around 12 rupees per square feet cost reduction has happened. This is what value engineering exactly is. And this expands based on the item, based on the scope. And this goes not just in cost, this goes in terms of bringing the right vendor in place. This goes in terms of time saving in place, schedule. I mean, how quickly you can bring a material. For example, certain material you need to import from China. You may also find a similar material with a little cost fluctuation, which is locally available in Hyderabad or Chennai or Bangalore, which you can easily transport than quickly transport than the time which is required to import from China. So value engineering is not just about cost; it's also about time savings. So in a nutshell, it's about savings. It may be cost or time saving, but it should functional. It should give them promise the same functionality. It should promise the same look, feel, quality of the project. And then one of the other delivery is scheduling. When I say scheduling, there is no straightaway expectation for a QS to sit and do micro level scheduling, but we may have to give our advices in terms of schedule, because we are the people who understand the cash flow very well, the material procurement route very well, the projects procurement route very well. So we need to have a say on schedule, and our understanding on schedule which is going to be very helpful in terms of preparing a right cash flow statement for the project. A cash flow statement, when I say, it's nothing but you have to give the client, boss, this is a 1 year old 1 year long project. January, what is the amount that you have to have in hand? February, what is the amount you have to have in hand? Likewise, throughout the year, each and every month, what is the amount that you should have in your hand? And this is directly related to your schedule, which is related to the quantum of work that is planned to get executed at that point of time, which again sticks to the schedule. So that is also something which at QS would deliver a part of a project, and rate analysis eventually. When I say about I can speak this a little detail with another specific example in the upcoming slide. So for now I'll leave this. Cash flow, I have already told this about schedule. Our understanding about schedule is also something which we have to think about the global perspective. During what time the monsoon is going to happen, so how do we plan that activity, etc. And again, cash flow, I've explained you already what it is about. And of course, cost reports is something which is going to be an integral part of integral delivery of any project, right from the day one you get into a project till the project is completed financially and handed over. The cost of financial accounting is handed over to the client. You need to give report every week, or maybe sometimes 2 week fortnightly once, or 2 week once, or sometimes monthly once, depending on the project's requirement. And these are the health check reports. These cost reports are going to tell a client how much you are spending on a project. Is it above or below the budget? The cost which is left out is enough to complete the project or not? So all this information the client is going to get based on the cost reports. And how whom does a QS will typically work with in a project? This is going to be, I've just tried to put it in a little funnier way. It doesn't mean that we'll be thrashed by all these people. So first thing is a client, uh, then designers, multiple consultants and project management consultants will be there, and contractors are going to be there. You may be a little worried, like, where are we? Of course we are going to be there. At the bottom of this this chart, all these multiple stakeholders would love to play around with us, would love to play along with us. And we need that patience. That is the reason I have explained about multiple skill sets what we require. We need that patience, we need that ability to understand their perspective, we need to understand the project's perspective in place. Sometimes things go very wrong, sometimes things go in an anticipated way. So we need to have that control and ability to balance the entire game. So that is these are the typical examples of stakeholders whom a typical quantity surveyor would work within a traditional project. So client, when I say, it's the person who is funding the project. Designer, when I say, there could be multiple designer, structural designer, architectural designer, etc. PM, I mean to say consultants. There will be a lot of other consultants along on top of a PM. There will be lead consultant, sustainability consultant, there will be traffic consultant, lighting consultant. We may need to work with everyone, because everybody will come and do something which should be in control with the cost. There is always a saying, nobody wants to build there is a saying like, it is easy to build a Taj Mahal from someone else's pocket. So we have to ensure nobody is building a Taj Mahal of their own from client's money. And it to balancing that is an art. So there will be multiple consultants, and of course contractors who come with their perspective, and all are in super love to play with us. So be ready for that traditional journey of quantity surveying. And now coming to the part of bill of quantities. What is a bill of quantities? So I've just given a simple example here. So bill of quantity will have this 6 columns in place. It starts with the serial number, nothing to explain in that. It starts with the project description. I'll just come to that again. Item description. I'll come to that again. And it has to specify what is the unit that I'm referring to measure that particular item, and followed by the quantity and rate and amount of that particular item. So this is how a BOQ structure will look like. Now I would like to speak a little specific about the description column, and this specifies the importance of a BOQ for you. Uh, so basically, I'll just take an example here. Maybe a simple example here. We wanted to, we have just seen this here. We are writing a BOQ for a vitrified tile laying. So now, what is this vitrified tile laying? What are the components of it? Obviously, there is going to be a tile which may look like this, and there is going to be a little bit of mortar, or adhesive as a bedding for that tile, and there is going to be a labor involvement for that tile, and there is going to be certain transportation cost involved for that tile. You may site the item is going to be available at ground floor. You may need to transport that tile to 10th floor. How do you transport that? And there is going to be a lot of other tools, machineries, tackles, etc., which is required for that, and a lot of other overheads. For example, water, your electricity consumption to drive all those tools. You may need to put scaffolding. Suppose if it's a wall tiling, you may need to put scaffolding to install the tile at above your height level. And how do you calculate all that? And on all top of that, your profit, or the execution contractor's profit. So these are the items which is typically involved under this single line of vitrified tile laying. When I say it looks very simple, vitrified tile laying. Now you see the number of activities and number of items which is involved inside this line item. So now the question of a BOQ is, why do we need to what is the difference between giving a single line item description and a detailed description? Now I have a question here. What if the contractor has missed to consider the transportation charges here? Or what if the contractor has missed to consider the tools and tackle charges here? He might have thought I would do a manual cutting. The project should specify what is the cutting technology used for cutting the time. So all this has to be descriptive. So the fundamental rule of a BOQ is, anybody who is trying to price for that item should have that, the BOQ should tell them what are all the activities involved, sub activities involved in completing that item to the person who is pricing it. So now I've shown a single line item BOQ here, correct? I'll also show a detailed BOQ description, how a BOQ can add value to a project. You can understand here. The same item, I'm rewriting it here. Just have a look at it. Supply and installation of homogeneous vitrified jointless tile of size 600 mm by 600 mm. So here it is understood that the vendor has to supply the material. The material the client is not going to supply. So the vendor has to procure the material, supply the material, install the material. So what is that material? It's a homogeneous vitrified jointless tile. And what is the size of that material? It is a 600 by 600. T4 is maybe a type denominated for a project. So it's a T4 you can find in the drawing also. The size of the T4 is 600 by 600 mm. And it has to be laid in required pattern and design as approved in drawings and by consultants. So you cannot just put it in straight lines or horizontal line or vertical line. You may sometimes the drawing would require you to place it in a diagonal or a diamond shaped pattern. So all that has to align with you supply and you install the particular size of so and so tile in the required pattern as shown in the drawing. So the job shall also include all wastage for the material. So when you price for the item, you also have to price for the wastage of the item, all the labor required for the installation, transportation of the tile till site. So you might have procured that particular tile from Bangalore or maybe from Gujarat. The transportation from transporting from Gujarat to your site at Hyderabad has to be calculated into it. Shifting of materials till work front. The material might be stored at a storeroom, maybe in basement. You may have it to execute that in 12th floor. So what is the transportation cost of that? What are the necessary tools and tackles for cutting, chipping, joining, and cleaning? All that has to be taken into consideration. The work shall be complete in all means as per the instruction provided by site supervisor. There may be some ongoing site instruction also. We may sometimes not do it today. We may need to postpone it to tomorrow because of certain other factors. So the instruction which is given by the supervisor has to be taken into control. And protecting the tile after installation, protecting the tile with bubble wrap so that it doesn't go for any scratches or anything. So imagine the detail which is involved in this BOQ sample compared to the previous BOQ sample which I have shown. And what is the basic rate of the tile, which is very important, which helps them to arrive on this rate. So a 650 rupees per square meter, or as approximately 65 rupees per square feet tile would end up as maybe 1800 rupees per square meter of installation. So this is how this 1850 is something which we arrive through a rate analysis. And to arrive that rate analysis, all this BOK description is going to be very important. So this is something which is very huge, of very huge importance in a project. That's why I take a little time in explaining this. So next, followed by a BOQ, what you need is in terms of BOM, which is nothing but bill of material, which should specify different types of material, its respective units, and how much would be the quantity to procure or to order. Does it includes wastage or excludes wastage? So from this, you can pass it to your procurement team about the project's requirement. Depending on the cash flow, you can customize this and go ahead forward. So now, what is the rate analysis? Sorry, I've just titled it as what is BOQ. So rate analysis, now we have arrived on 1850 rupees per square meter. So how do we arrive that? We take the basic rate of that tile, followed by the cost of the mortar, followed by the cost of labor, followed by the cost of shifting, followed by the cost of tools, tackles, your overheads like power, electricity, etc., water, anything, and your profit. And putting up all together, this 1850 per square meter is arrived. And this is going to be the rule or fundamental rule for arriving a rate analysis. Even though a QS has to have a expertise, even though certain items are not specified in a BOQ, it is the QS responsibility to understand how an item will be executed. Now I would like to take a pause and just remember about the site knowledge which I have told you. execution knowledge. When I meant site knowledge, I was saying about execution knowledge. So this is where your execution knowledge is going to come into play in terms of, what if something is missed out in the BOQ? How will you know that? Only when you have that expertise, or when you see an activity, you should have that conceptualization ability to understand this particular activity requires certain other considerations beyond this, which I will take it into my rate, so that my organization prices it just right for this item. We are not missing anything, so that your organization is not going to be in loss. Client is not going to have a change later part of time. So this is what, in a nutshell, the essence of a rate analysis as well. And I told you I'll explain about the building part a little later. So we have come to that. Billing, I would like to closely, say, like any building, we need to do a billing part of it, either during construction or post construction, or for any material supply. So the thumb rule of a building is, first thing is, what you should have to initiate a building or think of a building is, first thing is you should have a purchase order. So the work order or a purchase order has to be there first. Only then you are approved to receive a bill from the client, from the contractor or from the vendor. If there is no purchase order, there's no billing. The rule is very simple here. And what do we do here is, first thing is, once a billing once a billing process is started, first thing is, if a PO is in place, first thing what we need to check is, what is the terms agreed for billing. Is it going to be monthly, or is it going to be as soon as the material is supplied? All these terms will be written part of the BO. So check the billing terms. And second is documentation submissions. So what are the other supplementary documents which needs to be there? How do you ensure that the material is supplied in right quality and installed at right quality? So your QA/QC engineers sign, or the material inward registry at your stores, the checklist has to be collected. Only then the bill can be processed, and measurements or milestone. So how do you measure that, whether the particular quantity is executed exactly at site, or is it the bill going to follow some milestone payments? So that is going to be very significant. Once this is agreed, once this is principally available, which you could visibly see, then you can ask a contractor or a vendor to provide a draft submission. Remember, this is very important. Anytime, you should not straight away submit a tax invoice. You should always start with a draft invoice, because it has to agree to the billing terms. All the documentations has to be clearly available. All the measurements and milestones has to be met. If this is not done, then you have to reject the bill, and it is not an easy task to reject a tax bill or a tax invoice. So for that sake, we always receive draft bill. We check those things, and then we give validation to the bill. Finally, we update. We also check with the bill tracker. Is it in line with the cash flow projection? Is it in line with the previous, current, and cumulative tracker we have to put? And then we have to check for the entire validation to give an approval for invoice. So once this approval for invoice is given to a vendor or a contractor, then they have the right to come and submit their tax invoice, so that this ensures that the bill is going smoothly. So at the draft invoice level itself, we are going to check everything. What is going to happen? Is there anything missing? Is it aligned to the project requirement? Is it aligned to the cash flow requirement? Is it all approved by the QC and PMC team? Is there any health and safety violations happen? Is there any penalty which I need to take from them? What is the amount that a contractor will get, out of deductions, all retentions and everything? So all these will come to know, and then you give approval for tax invoice, and then let them generate a tax invoice, which you have to certify as a QS for further payment. So without your payment certification, nobody in the client side, nobody in the finance side is going to take or approve those invoices. So this is what the billing process in will happen in a nutshell. And yes, that's what I've tried to cover almost. And I also tried to take few questions here, which we got as a